SoFloRadio.com.
We do big things.
You're listening to The Spot.
To the 2, the 3, the 4.
Fellas, I'm ready to get up and do my thing. I want to get into it, man, you know.
Let me tell you something, man. These are everyday common folk, working people out there. These laborers. You play the game when you working for them.
Who are you talking to like that?
Messy.
Talking to your ass.
Damn, y'all look good in the government check. Yeah.
And now, The Spot on SoFloRadio.com.
And without a doubt, this is The Spot right here on SoFloRadio.com. I am your host, One Jack Frost, coming across your streamlines. And I mean, what can I say with this particular guest that we have here? Everything from a best-selling author, the New York Times best-selling author, contributor and director, producer of the installment series, The Hidden Colors, among other things, a video game app creator as well, right here at The Spot. I'm only talking about one person, y'all. I'm talking about King Flex. We got all the names here, but the name that we know him best as is Tariq Nasheed.
What's going on, family? What's good? I'm good out here in Miami, making it do what it do, loving the people, loving the vibe, and enjoying it.
Hey, we definitely appreciate having you here. And, of course, you're here to promote something very important. The More Us Tour. We'll get into what in particular you'd like to establish with the More Us Tour. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole lot of things. I mean, let me just cut the music off because this is something that, needs a moment of silence.
Yes, indeed.
Normally for the show, the discussion show that we have is normally just an interview type of situation.
Right.
And a lot of times we'll have a compiling of what happened, the trending topics throughout the week.
Of course.
That's what we do throughout the show. But for guests like you, we'll set aside that and do something different. But this week, within the last 24 hours, we've had something that, hit us all.
Yeah.
With the passing, we'll say the passing at the moment of one Prince Rogers Nelson.
Yeah.
That's
it's crazy, man.
That is. It's definitely crazy, man. You don't expect people or artists, I should say, like Michael Jackson and Prince. You figure because of the music and what it does to you that they'll be here forever.
Exactly.
And he's 57. I mean, he was 57. So I wanted to take this time because you did something ironically, eerily, when Michael Jackson passed.
Yeah.
And you detailed how it's not what we thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you also detailed shortly after Prince passed, what the situation was with that. Could you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, man. When Prince died, man, first of all, let's go back to last week. It was last week or 2 weeks ago when they first reported that Prince was sick.
Right.
That shocked everybody.
Had the flu.
Yeah, and they had to take him to the hospital.
Right.
Everybody was shocked because of that. The reason why they were shocked is because Prince has been in the industry for about 40 years.
Exactly.
And Prince has never been sick. There's never been reports of him sick or going to the hospital.
It's never been disclosed. Exactly.
Never been disclosed. But but in the hospitals, if you're admitted to a hospital, they'll leak the story because they get paid. Hospital workers get paid to leak stories about people coming in. So somebody would have said something if Prince ever went to a hospital. Exactly. That's why Michael Jackson didn't want to go to hospitals. That's why that Conrad Murray guy was at Michael's house doing all that stuff to him because Michael knew that people were trying to get him.
Right.
Dick Gregory had to take him to a hospital up in San Francisco.
Right.
And Dick Gregory was with him. He was in my movie Hidden Colors 3, I think. It was 2 or 3. Well. It was 1 or 2 or 3. It was one of them. And he's a real deep brother.
Right.
And Michael did want to go to a hospital for that very reason. Number one, he didn't want nobody selling his story or letting the media know he was there. And he knew that it was easy to get poisoned, but they got Michael anyway. But Prince, we never heard anything about him getting sick or going to the hospital. This brother was a strict vegetarian.
Right.
I mean, this guy was the picture of health. Patti LaBelle has even done interviews saying that the guy eats like a bird. He's a real healthy dude. No one around him ever said anything about drug use or anything like that. So for him to suddenly die, of course that's going to raise red flags.
Right.
I'm shocked, but not surprised because historically black artists, whenever black artists gain access to a catalog from a major record label, that's always a problem. Because in the system of white supremacy, the game is to not let us second generation our wealth. So when we had people in the 60s like Sam Cooke, who was one of the first black artists to say, hey, I'm going to use my notoriety and my leverage and my money to get my catalog back and own masters. When he did that, he mysteriously got shot at a hotel in L.A.
Right.
And to this day, nobody knows what happened. There's all types of crazy stories.
Because he was a big mover and shaker with MCA Records, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's signing acts and things of that nature. He even got Muhammad Ali to drop an album.
Absolutely.
So that shows you the clout he had way back then, and for him to end up the way he did. So it's, I don't know, it's a bit of a fantasy world that we might be in, and thinking it's just the music industry. They wouldn't do that, but come on, I mean, think about it.
Black people got this thing. We don't understand how sinister the white supremacists can be. Black people need to read this book written by a white dude called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And in this book, this guy talks about how rich bankers and rich secret white organizations, they will literally put hits out on certain black leaders and black communities and black countries, and how they use their economy and how they use the banking system to control and subjugate these countries. And if there's ever a leader who stands up to them, the leader just ends up getting killed. And they have all types of creative ways of doing it. There's a white guy saying this. So we have to understand that when it comes to wealth and money, they have no problem taking a black person out. One lone black person, they create genocide. So it's nothing for them to take out one black person. In 2014, Prince gained access to his masters, and he was fighting the record labels for 30 years to get access to his masters.
Right.
And they tried to sabotage Prince's career. They wouldn't. You notice they haven't played Prince songs on the radio in about 20 years. They don't play his songs, but Prince can still sell out a concert overnight.
Right.
So he waited until the 35-year term was up, because there's a clause in contracts where artists, if they sign a contract after 1976, if they wait 35 years, they can refile to own their masters. They can own their copyrights.
Right.
What happens, most artists don't last that long,
Right.
or they'll re-sign a janky deal and then they have to wait another 35 years.
Right.
Prince said, no, I'm not signing another deal with the majors. If you don't want to put out records for me and I got to bow down to you, I'll change my name to a symbol and still perform. That's how gangster that brother was.
And sit on the music.
Exactly.
He got
a vault.
Right.
Well, Prince has a vault of stuff. They've been trying to get a hold of that vault for years.
Right.
And he's like, I ain't giving you nothing.
Exactly.
I'll sell my songs at my concerts. Prince was moving and shaking and hustling the game.
I heard.
They didn't like that. And also they couldn't really license his music because he wrote all of his songs.
Right.
So if you want to license a song or some music, you have to get permission from the songwriter, even if the record label owns it.
Exactly.
So Prince was like, y'all ain't eating off me no more.
Right.
So he waited them out, got access to his masters, but the record label, now that they have a deal with him, they're in the pocket with him. So
Right.
they have access to that now.
Right.
So now, all of a sudden, after 30 years of him fighting the record label, he gets his masters back, and a couple of years later, he's dead, and nobody knows what the man died from. They didn't say about 5 different things.
Yeah.
Yesterday it was the flu. Then somebody said it was AIDS. Then they said it was an overdose. Now somebody's talking about suicide. They haven't even decided what lie they're going to use.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, I'll bleed a little bit into that, with what you offered with the Hidden Color series, because it's still ironic, and I want to speak purely from the standpoint of a person that doesn't know you. Like, I'm aware of who you are. I think I go back as far as the VH1 contributions you've made. So I'll talk about that, but let me start with this. Playing the game. I've viewed some of your the show, the Tariq Live show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's an understanding to be staunch and stand your ground within the society, the white supremacy society. But you also understand that you have to play the game. Explain that.
Absolutely. We got to understand this. We're in a system called white supremacy, and the white supremacy system is a prison. It's a prison complex. It's a global prison. And in any prison complex, you have to figure out ways to get out of that prison, but you have to be covert to a certain degree. and you have to have a code of conduct to a certain degree. So you can't let too many people know your hand.
Right.
This is why it's important to have a code of conduct. Black people, we've never had a code of conduct that we all abide by. The reason why we've been dominated by the white supremacists is because they have a code of conduct. When two random white people get in the room, automatically, even through osmosis, they know what to do and how to react to certain black people.
Okay.
They're taught that from childhood.
Right.
And we don't know how to have a code with each other. This is why we're confused, we get dominated, and we don't know the game. So it's important for us to get a code of conduct, meaning a standard of how to do certain things that will empower us. Thank you.
Right. Well, where did this all originate from? I mean, this wasn't something that just divinely came. I mean, you having knowledge of self and knowledge of your past. Did it come from a relative or something of that nature?
I came from the typical black family, go to church, praise the Lord, stuff like that. And as a kid, I would ask questions about blackness. So who was the first black person? What black person did this? What did we do in Africa? What were we before slaves? And nobody could ever give me an answer.
Right.
They would just tell me to go to the library and read. So I would read, and I still couldn't find a lot of stuff. Then when I became older, some hustlers started giving me books that I couldn't find in the library. So I started thinking, okay, why are these books hidden? I started reading stuff by John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben. I started watching videos by Khalid Muhammad, Farrakhan, Shahrazad Ali. And I wondered, why are all these things hidden from me? How come they're telling me one thing and I'm learning this? I remember in school, I went to a so-called mixed school, and I remember reading about Marcus Garvey, and the way they described Marcus Garvey is they described him as like a bad person.
Right.
They described him as like some kind of kook who had some kind of crazy scheme. He was a criminal, went to jail, and his scheme got exposed. That's how
They demonized him.
They demonized him. But when I got older and I read who Marcus Garvey really was, I'm like, this dude was the business.
Right.
So I've always wanted to tell our story in our own way. So that led me on the quest to acquire more knowledge.
Right.
And that's where the Hidden Colors eventually came from.
Because I think when I first was exposed to it, and it's dope that Prince even posthumously gave you a shout out to Janelle Monáe.
Janelle Monáe,
I think
yeah,
he posted
he did
as
that,
well.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Passed the Hidden Colors over to her, put her up on it. But I think the same feeling I had after watching the Hidden Colors is like, okay, what do we do next?
Yeah.
Because you get all this information, and if you want to disseminate it over to someone else, I think the other thing that I wanted to learn, okay, now that I have this knowledge, I don't want to just come at someone who is not of the same color and does not know our history and come off sounding like I'm, just a machine gun just trying to shoot all white people. It's not that. Right. It's not on that level. It's just more or less like the same way, like you said, those two white people know there's a certain way to conduct yourself. Mm-hmm. I wanted to establish that, with a fellow brother or sister. Indeed. You know what I mean? So how do you combat that? The pushback that you're getting, like, basically the same thing that was said when the anniversary was celebrated of the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
And it was, you never heard that, white people were abducted and, castrated, anything of that nature.
Exactly.
So how do you combat it with Hidden Colors?
You got to understand, when I do the Hidden Colors series, we got to stop being afraid of doing things for each other, because black people are the only people on the planet. If we talk about empowering ourselves, the dominant society, they go on alert and they get defensive. Mm-hmm. Other groups can talk about their pride. Asian groups can walk around with Asian flags. Out here in Miami, the Cubans can fly flags all over the place. But the minute people see a red, black, and green flag,
alert,
he's militant.
Alert.
Then they start labeling you.
Right.
He's a terrorist. He's Boko Haram. They label us all types of ways because they've always known that black empowerment, when we get on a roll, we get on a roll. Right. They know that once we wake up, it's a problem. Look at Haiti. Mm-hmm. They don't want another Haiti. Right. See, they've got black people thinking that we're weak and we're scared, we can't do anything, and we're outgunned. Mm-hmm. The Haitians dominated the mightiest war the military in the world at the time. Napoleon's military was the dominant military at the time, and these little African slaves in Haiti dominated them. This is why they've been punishing Haiti ever since. Right. And this is why they've been killing the spirit of Haiti and voodoo. They made voodoo something evil.
Right.
They started making movies in the 1930s, making it seem like voodoo was some type of demonic thing. That's where the whole zombie thing come from. Walking Dead, all that comes from voodoo. Voodoo's an African thing. That's all Africa, all of it. So they made it something evil so that black people will push away from it.
More demonization.
More demonization.
Right.
So we got to stop letting them tell us our history. And once we learn what our real history is, we can see the lies. That's why with the Hidden Colors, the new one we have, we're going for the jugular. We're going all the way in, talking about the religion of white supremacy, because that's what they've done with racism. They've turned it into a religion, which is something that they practice every day. And every religion has to have a God, and every religion has to have a devil. They've made themselves God, and they've made us the devil. So we have to combat that.
Well, the More Us tour, what will it envelop? I mean, what will it all have?
The More Us tour, we're talking a lot about history. We're talking about social engineering. We're talking about law. We're talking about what we can do to empower ourselves economically, because that's my biggest thing. Black people, we got to get serious about economics, because this is how a lot of people dominate us. We don't have an economic base like we used to. And once we get that economic base back, because we used to have an economic base until they dangled the carrot of integration in our face.
Right.
And we're never integrated. We've never been integrated. There really is no such thing as integration. Nobody can really define what integration is. Black and white people have always lived somewhat in proximity to each other. On the plantations, we live right behind the big house.
Right.
So what is integration? Black people were sexually exploited by the white supremacists. So what is integration? We didn't live in a system of integration, because see, the thing is, you got to watch the words that they use in the dominant society. They have substitute words for white supremacy. We have to use the word white supremacy. Like apartheid. What's apartheid?
Right.
It's white supremacy.
Right.
Segregation. That's white supremacy, because they think the opposite of segregation is integration. But we weren't really segregated during the Jim Crow era.
Right.
White people could do what they wanted to do. They could come into black areas. We just couldn't go in theirs. Look at the Rosa Parks situation.
Right.
People think that white people had to sit on the front of the bus, black people had to sit on the back, and Rosa Parks wanted to ride in the front of the bus. That's what we've been taught. That's not true at all.
False.
That's false. Right. Rosa Parks was already in the colored section. They wanted her to get up out of the colored section and make a seat for a white man.
Right.
And she said no. That was the problem. So they had access to the front and the back of the bus. The white supremacists always had access to the white communities and the black communities. They create the black communities. They create the ghettos.
So,
right here in Miami, they created the ghettos. Overtown. Yeah, Overtown.
Right up against the railroad.
They had a Harlem type of business district in Harlem.
Exactly.
I mean, in Overtown. And the white supremacists said, okay, we're going to bust this up because we don't want them pulling themselves up out of this. We're going to put I-95 right in the middle of that and destroyed it.
It was once called Colored Town before it was changed. You spoke on recently on your show about the Harriet Tubman. This was something that was circulated around, and we heard like rumors of it, and it was kind of pushed down. But you had your views on it. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, when I saw the Harriet Tubman thing, I said they threw a symbolic victory towards black people, and we don't understand how white supremacy works. We don't understand backhanded compliments. You notice when a lot of black people complain about models, black models not being on fashion magazines, we'll say we need more models who are black on Elle magazine, on Cosmopolitan. So the white supremacists, they'll say, okay, we'll give you a model. Come on over here, Gabby Sidibe.
Right.
And they'll put her on the cover. See, that's a backhanded compliment.
Right.
And they did the same thing with Harriet Tubman. We wanted a black person on some currency and a woman, because originally they wanted Margaret Sanger on a $20 bill. Did you know that?
Who?
You know who Margaret Sanger is?
No.
Margaret Sanger, and I want y'all to research her. This woman was a eugenicist back in the 1920s and 30s.
Right.
She wanted to create a program to eliminate black people because this was big. The whole Nazi thing was big at that time.
Right.
The eugenics program, the term eugenics became negative, so they changed the name to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood came from them wanting to wipe the black population out.
Right.
Now, Margaret Sanger was a staunch racist, and Hillary Clinton said that Margaret Sanger is her idol, by the way. So you look at her mentality.
Right.
So They wanted Margaret Sanger to be on the $20 bill. Black people who knew the history said, no, that's not a good look. So they said, okay, we'll put a black woman on there, but she'll be a slave. So they threw Harriet Tubman at us, and we're like, okay, because we do respect Harriet Tubman. We love her. The most ideal candidate should have been Madam C.J. Walker, a person who was a black woman, who was a self-made millionaire. That's the perfect person to put on currency, but they chose somebody who was in slavery. And this is the trick that people they didn't see this. They're going to put Harriet Tubman on the front of the 20, but they're going to put Andrew Jackson on the back. They're not going to totally replace him.
A subtle compromise.
It's not. It's a compromise, but it's a diss because now you have a slave on one side a slave master on the other. He owned 300 slaves. So you cannot commemorate a person who tried to stop slavery and then commemorate a slave master. How does that work?
I mean, with the Margaret Sanger thing, it's still currency. I think the best point that I took from that show, your show, was the fact that Madam C.J. Walker should have been on it, but let's create more of a dialogue for how to keep that currency within the community or strengthen. Because you could put King Tut on the cover. You know, if we're not really benefiting from it outside of having it in our pocket and showing it off on a music video, it's not really, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I got the first Harriet Tubman bill. All right, cool. Yeah,
it's worthless unless you're giving us reparations, because that's what Harriet Tubman would have wanted. You know.
Well, another thing that that I wanted to touch on is paranoia. Is it something that seeps in with you? Because we in preparation for the event on Facebook, on social media, there were like a million different start times for the event. As a matter of fact, let's let that be known right now. The exact date the time that it will be.
It's tomorrow. It starts at 6 o'clock. Is that right? 6 o'clock.
Right.
At the Betty T. Ferguson Center.
Because if I'm pretty sure everybody in the room will know, it was 3 o'clock. It was 7 o'clock. It was 6 o'clock. I was like, who's doing this? And we all communicated with each other, and it was very confounding. And we got to the point where we started thinking maybe it was a federal thing that it was being interfered with.
Man, they call Facebook Fedbook right now, man. Facebook is known to do all types of things to sabotage progressive black movements. That's why we created the More Us app, because we kept getting banned from Facebook. I would put up posts talking about stuff, and they kept banning my page. A lot of black people who talk about black empowerment, they wake up and they find out that their page has been banned or their page has just been deleted.
They're in Facebook jail, as they call it.
That's exactly Facebook jail. The actor Romney, my man Romney.
Romney from Think Like a Man?
Yeah. His page was knocked out. Yeah, they banned his page. A lot of people who are talking about positive things who are black, they take their pages down. But these white supremacists sit on Facebook and talk crazy about black people. They talk about shooting black people. They talk about lynching black people, and they don't do anything to their pages.
Right.
So that's why I created the More Us app, so that we can have a dialogue about what we need to talk about and not worry about getting sabotaged, because I've talked to a lot of other people whose pages look like they've been hacked. You got people posting stuff for them, posting misinformation, like they said, changing the dates and times of our event. It's crazy. Yeah, so that's why we got our own thing going.
No, and that's something that, you know, I'm very much, even with the Hidden Color series, you know, you took it upon yourself. From what I saw, of course, there were helping hands, the contributors, you know, RIP to Dr. Francis,
yes,
Wesling, and you know, all the contributors, you know, Claude Anderson. Speaking of the contributors, right? These are, you know, of the current contemporaries that are coming on that you haven't put on Hidden Colors for. Who are some of the people that you're looking at right now that, I'll chop it up with that person. I could get good game, because I know that you and Boyce Watkins have recently come across each
other.
And
he's in Hidden Colors 4.
Right. So who are some other people outside of the people that you've dealt with?
Yeah, the people, we use some more people from Hidden Colors 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Like Brother Kaba, we brought him back.
Okay.
Phil Valentine, we brought him back. But I did want to get some new faces, and I wanted to reach overseas. I got a sister named Jennifer Tosh that I met over in the Netherlands when I was doing a lecture there. I flew her out because I wanted to make it more international.
Right.
I got a brilliant brother from the UK named Robin Walker. He has a book called When We Ruled. So we're getting that international connection thing, because there's a lot of brilliant scholars around the world that we have to connect with, and we need to share the same message so we can get an international code of conduct. So we got Killer Mike in Hidden Colors 4.
Nice.
Oh yeah, thorough brother.
By any chance, did you come across Ashwa Kwesi? Did you ever?
I've been trying to get brother Ashwa Kwesi since Hidden Colors 1. But our scheduling. We tried to get him for Hidden Colors 1. He was on his way to Egypt. I tried to get him for 4. But I was going to fly down to Dallas to interview him, and there was a snowstorm, so we had to cancel. So just little stuff like that. But I've been trying to get that brother for years, man. I've been trying to get Minister Farrakhan. So eventually I get him Hidden Colors 5, 6, or whatever. I'm going to get them in it.
That leads me to the next thing because, you know, as you spoke of, like when two brothers, or a brother and a sister, come together, it's definitely a powerful thing. It's not hyperbole when I say that. So to see what looked like a possible beef between you and Tommy Sotomayor, what would you say was the issue or what caused that?
Well, he's a non-factor, though.
Okay.
That's like you're asking me, well, what do you think about that homeless crackhead in the street? That's literally... I mean, he's such a non-factor. I wouldn't even put any kind of energy and thought into that. That's something. You asking me about an insect? You know, I don't think about insects that I've smashed. So.
Because you've definitely created, not just off of Tommy, but you know, of course, there have been some people that you haven't agreed with,
right?
And you created a vocabulary that I just need you to give. We talked about you're expecting another son.
Yeah.
And you received, we'd say, a ratchet book.
Yeah.
A name of African American names.
Yeah.
That probably wasn't the best.
Yeah.
And they had descriptions to them.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So I've got a list, not all of them, but I've got a list of terms that I've heard you use on your show and things of that nature. Just give the Tariq breakdown.
Okay.
All right. Moist.
Moist, that means a dude we're not clear on his sexuality.
Okay.
That's a straight dude who's a little androgynous with his sexuality.
Moisture.
Yeah. It's a straight dude who's a little funny style. Yeah.
Okay, moisture. Okay. Crispy ninjas, Negroes.
Yeah. Somebody who's ashy.
Okay.
And somebody who's ashy who doesn't lotion themselves.
So that kind of falls in the same category. That's a simile with dusty dudes.
Yeah.
Okay, dusty dudes. The Coon Train Awards.
What about black on black crime? Where's the white women at? All white peoples ain't bad. We is our own worst enemy.
Now, how serious is that? Do we have an actual venue for this, or like
we did it?
Oh, we did it.
Yeah, we did the Coon Train Awards.
Okay.
We had a ceremony in L.A. It was sold out. It was at a comedy club. We had Freeze Love, Zoe Williams, Hope Flood act as the judges. People can see it online. They can go to plantationcelebration.com, and we gave out trophies. Some of the winners were that Sheriff Clark from Fox News, that sheriff's always talking greasy.
Right.
Stephen A. Smith won the Sports Coon of the Year.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Who won? I think Larry Elder won the Newscaster Coon. So we had a lot of good categories.
So did Ben Carson get a Lifetime Achievement Award?
No, he got nominated. It was another dude beat him out. And Jesse Lee Peterson got beat. That's the thing. It was a lot of good coons. Now, Diamond and Silk, those Trump girls, they got one. They got the Mammy of the Year.
What about the pastors that endorsed
Trump? They got one. Okay. They won one. Stacey Dash got the Bedwench of the Year award. So, yeah, we got a lot of them out there. Okay. She beat out Raven Simone.
That's definitely something to see. Yeah. Now, you said you were basically self-taught when it came to, well, not fully self-taught. You had game dropped on you by the older heads. But you studying etymology and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Was the drive or the hunger that much for you to go into studies like that, or?
No, you know what? I kind of fell into it. I mean, I was homeless. I was in L.A. and I was homeless for a minute. And being homeless, what I would do, I would go stay at the library during the daytime and hang out with hustlers at night. So in the library, what's funny, I wasn't trying to get no knowledge. I was just reading a bunch of books out of boredom. I would read all those books to kill time so I can go run the streets later on that night.
Okay.
Because I didn't want people in the streets knowing I was homeless. So,
right.
you know, I had to wash up at the library and clean up and kind of sleep there. And then at night, I go hit the streets. So out of boredom, I would read all these books. And when I would hang with my people in the streets, I would just know stuff based on these books. I would give dudes advice reading psychology books that I read.
Right.
Then I started getting into relationship game, teaching people the psychology of relationships because I read all these damn books just out of boredom.
Right.
So that led me into writing my own books. So when I would write my relationship books, I noticed that there's always this correlation between race and relationships because a lot of people, they have racial questions when it comes to relationships, when it comes to dating.
Right.
Because when you date certain people, the racial dynamic has an effect on the outcome of the relationship because a lot of times in our economy, when black people get a certain amount of money, we start to date outside of our races. I wanted to know what that problem was. There's a lot of dudes out here, the minute they get some money, they start cooning it up with white women, and there's nothing wrong with dating interracially. I'm not the penis police, but a lot of people start getting racially confused when they get sexually confused.
So what was the outcome, or what was the conclusion you came to because of that? I mean, what caused it?
Yeah, it was because of the programming from white supremacy. I noticed everything kept going back to the white supremacists. Everything goes back to that. When I look at patterns that we have in relationships, things that we pick up, relationship habits that we have as black people, a lot of the things we get from a plantation because our relationships are interfered with by the white supremacists.
The buck breaking, is that something that's still permeating now?
It is.
Yeah.
It is because that was a way for on slave plantations, in order to take a black man's manhood and make him subservient, what they would do, they would rape black men in front of their women, in front of the children. And not only would that break him down, that would break the women and children down because they looked at their protector being subjugated, being effeminized, being dominated sexually, because that's what that's about, taking your manhood.
Right.
And unfortunately, that mentality permeates the prison culture now. When a guy goes to jail, they rape him to take his sexuality. They take his manhood. We didn't do that in Africa. That whole raping somebody to take their manhood, that's something that we did not do. That did not exist. We got that from slave culture, and we have to let a lot of that slave culture go.
Do you think the possibility of it is something to be seen at some point in the future?
Yeah, once we know things, once we know the history and why we do certain things, then we can undo them. You understand? See, we still have the bed winch mentality that's happening now. We also have the plantation buck mentality, where you have a lot of brothers now who did what they did on the plantation. They just go around knocking up a bunch of women and they say, okay, massa will take care of them. That's what they did on slave breeding farms. And you have brothers out here now who have 2 and 3 or 10 baby moms, and they don't say, the government, the county will take care of them.
My man that played for the Jets.
Yeah. Yeah, you got millionaires who have that dusty dude mentality. So that's something that we're going to have to charge to the game and understand why we do it so we can undo it.
Something that happened in posting the flyer for the show, you heard something along the lines of, ain't he the dude that wrote the MacBook? Like, how do you combat that? That obviously they're going to have negative connotations associated with it.
Oh, yeah.
But how do you combat that when you know you're bringing something to the table?
Oh, I combat that easily, because if they have a problem with the Mackin book, and because I wrote the Mackin book and did Hidden Colors, that says a lot about them. Why did it take the Mackin book dude to do something that somebody else should have done? How come they didn't create Hidden Colors? All these people out here, nobody ever got the money together and put it together and made the most positive, most successful Black history film ever. Hidden Colors is the best-selling Black history documentary ever. It outsold all of them.
And here's a couple of things that stood out to me as well. You eventually grew into using the term white supremacy, because before you primarily used the term dominant society, which it seemed more apropos, but at the same time, I guess it didn't attack the problem itself, but it did make sense. The dominant society, which dictates what you do and what you can't do. So that was pretty dope itself. The stature that you're having at this moment, right? For I'd say my generation or the generation that follows, you pretty much are walking into Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson-esque type of, stature. How do you how do you deal with that, or how would you view that, or have you recognized that?
Yeah, but they've been co-opted by the dominant society, though. The Sharptons and Jesse, they've always been co-opted by the dominant society. The dominant society, they push them out there. Don't make it think like they're coming out there button heads and they're challenging the system. The system pushes them out there.
Right.
So, I'm more grassroots, for real grassroots, because the Hidden Color series, there's a reason why mainstream media, they don't really talk about it at all, because this is a 100% independent project. So you got to be careful who they bring to you. Just like that DA in New York, Ken Thompson, they came and brought him out and said, hey, look, this is your new DA. And we were cheering about that at first, and then he pulled a Jedi mind trick on us and allowed that cop to get off free, who shot our brother Kai Gurley. So we gotta, it has to be a grassroots thing. We gotta bring our people up from a grassroots level and bring them up and watch them and have them do our bidding from top to bottom.
Well, this will definitely be my last question. Opposite of the grassroots situation, you did speak on one of your shows, the business of OJ. Blaming OJ. I see the same correlation with OJ, Bill Cosby, brothers who have ascended and eventually just feel like they are not of color anymore. What are your views on that? Like with the OJ thing is very peculiar. There's a movie coming out, I think it's a 30 for 30. Yeah. OJ Made in America. It's, no shade to Hidden Colors because it's right there, because it goes real deep into the whole makeup of who this guy was. This was the first athlete, barring color, first athlete to be doing commercials on that level in the 70s and things of that nature. So the business of OJ, Bill Cosby, these brothers who have ascended to levels to where they're, they're universal, they're transcendent. What are your views on that?
Well, the thing is, notice this. Black people, athletes, entertainers, we've only started making multi-millions of dollars in the entertainment business within the last 50 years. That started in the mid-'60s. Before the mid-'60s, a lot of black entertainers weren't making a lot of money. They just used to take your products, take your stuff, and then leave you broke and throw you back into the black community. Right. So the white supremacists, they said, okay, we'll lift a few of them up, give them a lot of money, but we're going to find ways to take that money back so they don't second generation it. That's the name of the game, to stop black people from second generationing that money. That's why you cannot point to really any black entertainer, multimillionaire, who's passed that wealth down. You cannot point to one. Bill Cosby, they're destroying his legacy now. His son ended up dead. Right. Sam Cooke, he ended up dead, didn't get the second generation his money. Michael Jackson, they just got his catalog back a couple of months ago. Right. You dig?
Billions of
dollars. Right. They got it back. Right. Now Prince, he mysteriously died. So all of these are not coincidences. OJ, he's one of them. Right. They destroyed OJ. OJ's in jail now. They done made up. He's the only person in history in jail for a 33-year sentence for stealing his own stuff.
Right.
They make up the laws as they go along with us.
Right. That was the premise for Hidden Colors 4, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Actually, that's 3. The rules are racist.
As
far as the lines that are blurred.
Yeah, they create different rules for us. Again, the name of the game is to get that money and the resources back so we don't second generation it.
Well, we definitely appreciate you coming through, and whenever you're in South Florida, you feel free to come on by to the spot. No doubt. You made a home here, and we're definitely appreciative of being the first stop on the More Us tour.
Yes.
And we look forward to being at the spot, your spot, at the Billy T. Ferguson Center tomorrow, and checking that out. This has been The Spot. I am one Jack Frost. He is
Tariq Nasheed.
Yeah, King Flex out here at The Spot, and this is SoFloRadio.com.
Yes, indeed.
Peace.